Hi guys, Peter Finch here, and we are testing out today the new iBlade from Ping. What I'm also going to do though, as well as testing this new club out, is compare it to some other models in the Ping range, specifically the iClub, or the iIron, whichever way you want to refer to it, and the G-Iron as well. So the iBlade, the iIron, and the G-Iron as well. Those are the three clubs that I think most customers going to Ping will have the choice of. You've got the G-Max Iron, which is a bigger version of the G-Iron. So I've selected those three clubs, and I'm going to have a little bit of a compare and contrast of all three of them together. So if you're thinking of getting a Ping Iron and you like the look of these, what exactly you would be having the choice between within the Ping range. Now this iBlade looks great. There is absolutely no doubt about it. It looks very similar to the Glide wedges that they brought out. So it's a similar back profile design. And there's some design features which have been taken from the Glide wedges and put into these irons. Visually, it's definitely the best looking Ping iron I've seen. It looks so simple. It looks very, very sleek. And it's a definite improvement on other blades that they've done in the past visually. It's still not a forged club. Now for something which is a better player's iron, and for the profile that this has when it's behind the ball, you would expect it to be a forged iron. However, what Ping are, and what they always have been, are masters of cast iron construction. So what they say is this is their best feeling iron that they've ever produced within that cast system. They did try and bring out a forged iron range. It was the answer. It was a few years ago now, but it was very, very expensive, and it just didn't do very well at all. So they shuffled that one off. Everyone's forgot about it now, and they're focusing on what they do best and what makes them the most money, the cast products. What I'm going to do is I'll have a clip away of a few of these. I'll just explain a few more of the details on the iBlade, exactly the technology that it contains, because when you look at the club, it isn't noticeably full of technology, but when you actually dive down into the details, there's some very, very cool stuff going on. And then I'll have a very quick comparison between this, the iClub, the iIron, and the G-Iron as well, because there are some very, very key differences that you need to be aware of. So if we look at the iBlade, what Ping have said is that because it's precision cast, it achieves the softest and purest feel that Ping have ever managed to get out of a cast iron. So the workability is higher, but they've also stuck some technology in there which increases the MOI. So you can't see it on the head, but they've inserted tungsten weights into the toes of each club. Now what that does, it increases the moment of inertia for the club, so it's much more resistant to twisting, and that adds forgiveness when it's a misstrike, which you generally want with a bladed iron. You do want some forgiveness because they are hard to hit out of the centre each time. The real difference in here comes when you switch over to the lofts of the club. Now I'm going to be using the 7-iron here for the testing. Now you'll notice here the loft on the 7-iron for the iBlade is 34 degrees. 34 degrees and 37 inches long. Now if we switch over here and we have a look at the iIron, all of a sudden, that's a little bit different. The loft on the iIron, so the next iron along in the series, which you'd call more of a muscle back design, that's at 32 degrees. Same length of shaft, but less loft. So you'd expect that ball to come out a little bit lower. And because of the different technology within the eye head, remember, this is designed to have that little bit more forgiveness. So it's the same, it's 431 stainless steel, but the moment of inertia is increased a little bit more. The centre of gravity point is a little bit further back, so you'd expect a slightly higher launch off these when compared to the iBlades. Now what that should give is a higher launch, but because of the lower loft, it should give an extra punt of distance. And there's a lot more visible technology going on within the iIron, so you've got the channel across the back and lots of other stuff going on in there. Now you compare that again to the G, and all of a sudden there is a big, big difference. Look at the difference here in the loft. So the loft that you're looking at with a 7-iron of the G-Iron is 30.5 degrees. So it's almost 4 degrees less than what the 7-iron is in the iBlade. Now obviously, when you compare that to the amount of technology within the G-Iron, so you've got that big thing at the back, what's it called? Core eye technology. Core eye technology at the back, which really springs away. It's going to launch high. The moment of inertia is exceptionally high in the G iron. It's a very forgiving club. And the centre of gravity has moved so far back that this is really going to ping off the face. Launch very high, and then with the lower loft, you'd expect it to be going further again and with less spin. Comparing those irons and putting them together, you can see how it changes throughout the whole makeup of the bag. So they've really focused here on giving a 7 iron a more traditional type of loft, so something which better players will feel more comfortable with. It is often a fact that players, when they get to a level of a good handicap, that they don't necessarily need distance desperately, but they want to be able to have predictive ball flights, being able to work the ball from left to right or right to left, and also have a consistent amount of distance. So although this iBlade is a higher loft, and it probably won't go as far as compared to the G iron, it should be a little bit more workable if you have a consistent swing behind it. So I'm going to have a very, very thorough comparison in a moment, but I just want to give my initial thoughts on this iBlade. When it goes behind the ball, it does sit very well. It's a step up from the S56 and the S55, which came before it. It is just that little bit sleeker, that little bit more compact. And the design of it is very deceptively simple, I think. It looks like a very true player's club. Now, because it's not forged, I've had a couple of hits with this already. Because it's not forged, when you strike it out of the centre, it still feels very, very nice, but it's noticeable that it isn't super soft. It is by far the softest ping iron that Ping have produced. There's no doubt about that. But it's not as soft as a forged iron. There's also no doubt about that. You can feel that it is a Ping club. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I have forged irons, I have the PSI Tours at the moment, which I love the feel of. But I love the feel of these because when you strike them, it feels nice, it feels soft, it feels solid as well. It feels like you've struck it with a very solid club face. And that's a nice feeling. It's a different feeling, but it's not an unpleasant feeling. And certainly when I had the S56s, it's something that I enjoyed. The S55, should I say. S56. It's something that I enjoyed. So it's certainly not a negative. When I pop this down and I try and shape the ball, so that was a nice little thing off to the left-hand side. If I just shape around and try and get a little bit more of a draw, it's certainly noticeable when you stick it down. It does inspire that confidence of being able to shape the ball, and that was just a lovely little draw. It wasn't a full swing, and the distance did seem to get out there quite a decent way. Yeah, 165 for a very, very three-quarter feeling swing, if I'm honest with you. It was a nice strike, and that lovely shape wasn't a problem to get. I'm going to compare these irons now. So the iBlade versus the I versus the G. I'm going to hit 5 shots with each and just see if there's a difference in distance, a difference in dispersion, and see what the difference in feel will be.
all those irons have been hit. I hit 5 shots with each club, and there's some definite variations between them all. So very much you can see and you can feel when you hit them the differences between those different iron ranges. So what we'll do is, first of all, we'll have a look at the G iron. So the G iron first. Now what you can see here, as I pull up the numbers, is very consistent carry distance until the last shot, which I'll get into in a moment. But very consistent, 173, 170, 175, 176. Club head speeds, very similar as well. Smash factor, very similar as well. And spin rates also very similar. If we have a look at where these were all landing, you can see they're within quite a tight circle, and the mean distance of those were 172 yards. Apart from the last one, which I didn't strike as well, which you can see here, the spin rates go down. It wasn't as good of a strike. The actual launch wasn't that good either. It just wasn't as nice a strike as the others. Ball speed was down. But overall distance there, total was 171, carry was 166. Now for a 7-iron, that's obviously still quite healthy. So I wasn't overly concerned, and that showed that the G iron, because of the extra perimeter weighting, because of that bigger head, it is a little bit more forgiving. With that touch of extra length as well, and the shaft may also give that a little bit more distance when needed. Now if we switch down from that G iron, and we go down to the I iron now, so the next in the range, as Ping would like to have it shown, you can see there's a little bit more of a fluctuation in distance, especially when I didn't quite strike it. Now the first one, the 172 yards carry, absolutely ripped that one, not a problem at all, smashed it a long way, right out the centre of the club. Next one, not quite so much, so even though my swing speed was faster, my strike wasn't as good, and it dipped right down to 163. Then it was pretty much up at 160, then 166, 165. So you'll see the distance overall of those shots has dropped, while my club head speed and everything else has remained quite similar, maybe a little bit slower in some cases, possibly because of the extra shaft length, although it's not a massive amount of shaft length difference. Smash factors are all pretty good as well. Go down to the I iron here, the iBlade should I say, must get my words out, iBlade, and you can see here again quite a big consistency in how I was hitting it. So 165, 167, 159, 161, 164, club head speeds all very similar. If we get all these shots up together and we have a comparison of all these, you'll notice here what I would expect to see. Now there's not masses of difference here, but you can definitely see how the G iron has gone the furthest, the I iron has gone the second furthest, and the iBlade has gone the least distance. However, if you notice the iBlade, it's in a much, well not much tighter, but it's in a tighter circle when compared to the other clubs. So although the distance might not quite be as far, I certainly felt I had a little bit more control over where I was hitting the ball off the good strikes.
Some very interesting results here. It's gone the way of what I expected. So the iBlade was certainly more workable when I struck it well, which I did strike most of them well. They were in a nice compact landing area. The G and the I had a little bit more variation in the distance. Certainly the G was the longest of the irons. But you'd expect that because of the technology which is in here, because of the lower loft. All the clubs are exactly the same spec as far as shafts go, so they're all X-stiff shafts. Slight difference in length with the G, which is a tiny, tiny bit longer, and all the grips were the same as well. So it was as accurate as a test as I could produce. Overall, if you were a better player, and you weren't massively concerned over distance and forgiveness, the iBlade is going to be the one you'd go for out of these Ping clubs. I think the I sits quite well in the middle of the range, but I didn't think there was that much difference. It looks a little bit chunky behind the ball. It looks like it could be a little bit more forgiving, slightly more offset. But if I had to choose between the two of the I and the iBlade, I'd definitely plump for the iBlade. I think it looks better and performs very, very similar, in my opinion. The G iron is different though. That is something that I will go for. If I wanted more forgiveness, I wanted that little bit more length. And I think this is still one of the best irons that Ping have produced. Right guys, please comment below. Let me know what you think. Have you tried the clubs yet at all? Will you be wanting to give them a go? Please leave your feedback below. Follow me on my other social media platforms as well, which are all linked in the description. And we will see you down here next time.